وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
Good morning أعزائي المستمعين، أسعد الله صباحكم. نرحب بكم من راديو بلدي ونتمنى لكم يوما مليئا بالأمل والمحبة والهناء والمغفرة والبركة. Welcome to Radio Baladi. My name is Khalil Hashim and I'm your host today on this beautiful Friday, October 17th. October is a beautiful month. Nature is changing and it's getting a bit cooler. We wish you the best of time. And we thank you for joining us this morning. Radio Baladi is the best and most effective ethnic radio station in North America. You are the best of listeners in the world. We have a wonderful program for you today. The first segment, we're going to be discussing flood assistance with FEMA Representative Erica Lopez. Good morning, Erica. Are you with us today? She'll be on the line momentarily. The second half, we'll be discussing the Ebola virus with other health concerns with Dr. Muhammad Hamami, Chief Health Officer at Wayne County. You can join the conversation by calling 248-557-3300, and we welcome your phone calls. We're going to make sure that we can get Erica on the line with us. Good morning, Erica.
Can you hear me?
With us today? Yes.
Good morning. I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me right now?
Oh, perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much for this time. I just wanted to let you know that I have our Deputy External Affairs Officer, Don Jacks, who will be providing the interview and answering questions of your callers.
Wonderful. Would that be, what's his last name one more time?
Don Jacks, Jacks.
Wonderful. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of information, a lot of valuable information for your listeners.
Absolutely.
And it's a pleasure to be on, and we're looking forward to getting this information out here in the next half hour.
Absolutely. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Erica for really working with us at the last minute to get this segment possible. And what we wanted to do is really provide as much information to our community, to our listeners, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. And before we start, I just wanted to give a little bit of, quick summary of what happened. On August 11, we were sitting in our homes, and all of a sudden, water came seeping in, through sewage lines into our basements. There's another thing I want to put into perspective here is that our community is more so than others. We use our basements for living space. You know, most people in the Middle Eastern community use their basement for living space. It is the largest room, and for large families, this makes a lot of sense. So when water came through the backwater, what's called sewage water, came in through the pipes, it inflicted a lot of damage. It's estimated about $300 million worth of damage in the community. And to our surprise, most of us found out that we were not protected by insurance. We would have had to buy something called additional rider called the back sewage water insurance. Myself included, I really had no idea that was available. Anyway, we found out the hard way that we were not protected. And recently, the President Obama declared the area a disaster area, and declared the area as a disaster area, and FEMA and their wonderful helpers came to the area to help. And again, I want to say good morning to you and welcome to the program. And could you just give us very quickly an update on the assistance?
Well, right now we have more than 400 FEMA people here working, and some in our office, and then many out in the field, meeting directly with disaster survivors. We have 4 disaster recovery centers open in the area, 2 in Wayne County, 1 in Macomb, and 1 in Oakland County. And we can give you those addresses later in the program.
Yes.
So right now, our main message is strongly encouraging anyone who was affected in any way by this incident to register with FEMA. And the best way is to go online at disasterassistance.gov, and you can do that 24/7. We have a toll-free telephone number that's available from 7 in the morning until 11 at night, 7 days a week. That's 800-621-3362. And first of all, as of night before last, and I'm right now, and I'm going to have to use, okay, these are today's numbers. Okay, right now I'm having to use night before last close of business numbers and hoping to have our updated numbers from last night at close of business as far as the number of people who have registered and the amount of disaster assistance available already in the hands of Michigan homeowners and renters who were affected. 76,753 people had registered as of night before last at close of business.
Wow.
$67 million in housing assistance is in the hands of those people who were affected. Another $2 million has been approved and is waiting to be sent out in FEMA grants. This FEMA money, many rumors have been floating around. This FEMA money is a grant. It's not a loan. It does not have to be paid back. And so already $67 million has been issued to people who have called and registered for assistance. And that is quite a financial impact, I would have to say, on the community. And FEMA is absolutely delighted that we've been able to do that. And we know that there are tens of thousands of other people who have yet to register. The registration deadline is November 24th. That will be 60 days from when President Obama signed the disaster declaration, and that's standard. That's what the law states. Registration period is open for 60 days from the date of the declaration, which was September 24th.
So we have almost about a month for people
We have another month,
yeah.
And we are strongly encouraging people register with FEMA. Many people, in fact, we had about 9,000 people in the Detroit area in Wayne County who thought that they had registered with FEMA. They had called 211 right after the flooding, or they had called their police chief and talked about the amount of damage they had. They had called the Red Cross, or they had called the local government ombudsman, and they thought that they had registered with FEMA. And after a press conference last week with the mayor, we took those 9,000 names, and we have been working through those and getting them registered officially with FEMA. So if you do not have a 9-digit registration number and you did not go online at disasterassistance.gov and register, or call 800-621-3362 and register, you're not registered with FEMA. We don't know you need help. So you must register with FEMA so that we know that you need help. We'll get you in the system. We'll give you that 9-digit registration number. We'll get an inspector out to the damaged property, and then a determination will be made as to your qualifications, your eligibility for disaster assistance. Now, another rumor is that we don't assist renters. We assist homeowners and renters. One registration per household. We've had a large number of duplicate registrations where husband and wife both would register, or maybe the head of the household and then maybe an older child is still living at home and they went ahead and registered. That stops the process if we get two registrations with the same address. And then FEMA has to pull those out, do a review, get back to the people who did the duplicate registration, and so that stops the process for a while. So we remind people one registration per household.
I would like to also remind our community that we have most of that information on our website at yamichigan.com. From the minute that the president declared this area disaster area, and FEMA provided the information, the phone number is there, the address is there. All you have to do is click on it, and we encourage you, and we try to put as much information as possible to keep everybody informed, and we will add some of this information that you're providing us today as well. So the benefits here is when we say grants. First, when they apply, and correct me if I'm wrong, they get assessed, and then they find out whether they're eligible for a grant. This is the money they don't have to return, and if they're not, then they will apply with the SBA, Small Business Administration, for a low-interest loan to repair their damage. Now, when it comes to the benefits, I'm speaking from my own experience. I was told that this pays only for emergency, for cleanup, and for areas that are, for example, if somebody, because most of the damage are in basements, or is in basements rather, and FEMA is providing the assistance for, again, a cleanup, for emergency, for those who to repair their homes so they can be safe to live in. Is that correct?
Sort of.
Okay.
Let me just make a couple of clarifications.
Sure.
FEMA's primary mission is to get people back into their homes in a safe, secure, and sanitary situation for that home. Federal disaster assistance, we operate under the Robert Stafford Act, which is an act of Congress, initially written by some congressmen and senators back in the 1980s, and it's been updated and revised and amended, but it's called the Stafford Act.
Okay.
And it's designed to help people get back on their feet after some type of natural disaster that was declared by the government. It's a helping hand in a way. It's not designed to make you whole. It's not designed to put you back in the condition that you were prior to the incident. What will do that is a FEMA grant, your own personal insurance, and a loan, possibly from the Small Business Administration. And so what we are encouraging people to do is, once they register with FEMA, and the inspector comes out, and if they do get a grant from FEMA, it can be used basically for minimal home repairs, and you as the homeowner make that decision as to how you want to use that money. It must be used for home repairs, or it can be used for temporary rental assistance to pay rent on a location where you have to live while your home is being repaired. So basically, that initial grant from FEMA, we don't use the word emergency necessarily. It's for minimal home repairs, temporary rental assistance. There is another FEMA grant under our Other Needs Assistance Program, which will assist a homeowner or a renter to help and replace those personal items that may have been damaged or lost. And those decisions as to what that other needs assistance covers can be determined by calling our FEMA helpline at 800-621-3362. Now, that is also the registration number. You call 800-621-3362, you have the option to go to registration, or you have the option to go to the helpline. Now, I mentioned our disaster recovery centers. We have two in Wayne County at the Wayne County Community College, at the Welcome Center on West Outer Drive, and then at the Education and Performing Arts Center at 21,000 North Line Road. And they are open from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. And my producer is handing me a note, and FEMA will be at the Islamic Center of America in Dearborn.
Yes.
And when that will be when? At 1 p.m. today.
Today, that's correct, yeah.
The Jumu'ah event today. And you may have known that.
Exactly.
And I had just been handed this by Erica.
That's fine.
But the reason I was mentioning these disaster recovery center locations, the two in Wayne County, West Outer Drive and North Line Road. Then there's one in Macomb County at the Renaissance Unity Church on 11 Mile Road. And then in Oakland County at the Kulik Community Center. You can go visit a disaster recovery center.
I'm going to ask you.
Sit down and meet face to face with
FEMA.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you to hold off on that for a second. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to go more into details how this can be done, if you don't mind.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Senabriku for all your Metro Detroit real estate needs. 248-755-3494. Whether buying or selling, short sales, foreclosure, or investment for both business and residential, call Senabriku, owner and broker of St. Jude Realty, at 248-755-3494. If you're facing legal problems, it's time to get the right attorney working for you. Ziad Gossett is experienced in foreclosure defense, eviction, and real estate law, as well as immigration matters, workers' comp, bankruptcy, business law, and all criminal matters. With attorney Ziad Gossett in your corner, you won't have to fight alone. Call 248-680-7300. That's 248-680-7300.
سليطة للخدمات الدولية في ليفونيا. جميع أنواع الخدمات الإنسانية منها الهجرة والتجنس، معاملات اللجوء، الضمان الاجتماعي، العجز الصحي، الميديكير والميديكيد، تنظيم وترجمة الوكالات الخاصة والعامة، التوثيق، إضافة إلى الاستثمار في الأردن وفلسطين بما يتضمن شراء وبيع الأراضي. زوروا موقعنا الإلكتروني salaita.intl.org واتصلوا على الرقم 734-358-0144. سلايطة للخدمات الدولية، نتقاضى رسوم متواضعة ورمزية جدا. 734-358-0144.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi, and we thank you for being with us, and we ask you that if you'd like to join the conversation, you can call us at 248-557-3300. And again, we're discussing with FEMA representatives the assistance that FEMA is providing in the area, and we want to thank them for being with us today. And before we went on the break, we were talking about, the benefits and how this can be done when people come into the center, and I'm going to ask you kindly to continue what we were discussing.
Okay, thank you. The Disaster Recovery Center locations have been designed, and they've been in service to disaster survivors for the past 15 years. Anytime there is a federal disaster declaration, it's where people can go and sit down, talk to a FEMA person face-to-face, talk to a small business administration representative face-to-face. They can meet with other federal and local officials, get their questions answered, and get some help get resolution to their particular case. They don't have to go to a disaster recovery center, but we just make the locations available in case they want to do that. And and I think you have those addresses on your website for those disaster recovery centers.
Absolutely.
So that's quite a benefit for your listeners, and we certainly appreciate that. While we were away, I was able to get our current numbers from last evening. We are now up to 79,875 registrations, right at 80,000, and more than $71 million, up from 67 the previous day. More than $71 million in housing assistance dollars are in the hands of flood survivors in Wayne, Macomb, and Oakland counties, and we're just absolutely happy about that.
Wonderful. I want to bring something to everybody's attention, is the appeal process. For example, when I first applied I have $18,000 worth of damage in my basement. When I first applied, I was granted $300, and I was like, that's not even enough to pay for the paint. And then I talked to the representatives over the phone, and then they explained to me the appeal process. And I urge people, if they get turned down for any reason, you have the chance to appeal and explain your situation. And I found that everybody I talked to at FEMA, really great help and wonderful listening and trying to find any way possible to help. So could you please explain the appeal process very quickly?
Tell you what, and thank you for that good comment on our customer service. We
Absolutely.
work very hard.
Absolutely.
To be very customer service oriented, customer service centric. Julie Pardini from our individual assistance branch, one of our subject matter experts, is here, and I would like to bring Julie up to the phone and have her talk about, to answer that specific question. Julie Pardini.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you for being on the program.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because one of the things that we try to do is initial assistance is designed to do things such as check the furnace to see if it needs repair and things like that. So whenever there's a change in circumstances or assistance required, we call it an appeal process. So and the helpline can certainly help people walk through that, but basically it's sending us a letter saying, FEMA, we'd like to appeal this process. Here's the receipt, or here's the estimate that I need my furnace replaced. And now, instead of being a $300 check, now, for testing, now I actually need additional amounts to actually have the repairs or the replacements done. So that's a normal part of the process. The initial assistance is often for basic cleanup and testing to find out, and we understand that may not always be. And if you don't agree with the decision, certainly if you have some additional expenses that would be eligible, absolutely, please call the helpline, and they will help walk you through that process.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to mention also is that to our listeners is, if you get turned down for a grant and then you're asked to apply for an SBA loan, go ahead and do that. That is the process, because if you get turned down for that loan, then you're sent back to FEMA for a possible grant. And this is another way to get help. The other thing is, I want to ask, for example, if I'm awarded a grant for different parts of for personal property, for possessions, for being out of the house while work is being done, can I shift these funds? Like, you give me this money, it's let's say a total of $4,000, and can I shift these funds and use them for different ways instead of, spending them on just, on personal property? I can spend them on possessions to buy things. Will there be an inspection to make sure that this is done the right way, or how does that work?
Well, certainly, you're absolutely correct that the SBA loan process, it is part of the process. And we certainly want to encourage people to go ahead and go through that, because there is kind of a sequence of delivery. And so people who are not eligible for SBA loans, and we won't know that until after the application is done. And if they're not eligible, you're absolutely correct, there's additional assistance. Now, as for personal properties or any funding, obviously we would hope that people are spending it on what has been defined as the actual repairs needed, because the money was actually provided to, again, bring it back to safe, secure, and sanitary.
Sure.
But certainly, no, we do not come out and inspect to see if you bought a pair of jeans or if you, in fact, had the dishwasher repaired. No, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Certainly, people are adults, and we do want to encourage, though, that people do spend the money on what it was designed for.
Absolutely.
And the rental assistance, is a different amount, and there's specifically money eligible for rental assistance if that is a need, and if the inspection supports that there's a need to move out. Certainly, that is a potential benefit available.
Wonderful. What else can we tell our listeners that to really encourage them? Because some people that I talk to, we get a lot of calls on this issue, and they're kind of a little bit, suspicious, because they're saying, well, if the damage is in my basement, why are these inspectors want to see the entire home?
Primarily, it is about essential living areas, And they're looking for the damage. They're looking for what is the household setup. We want to understand how many people are living there. What is the occupied and essential living spaces. And it's important that that's part of it, if they spot additional damages that were caused by the flooding in the basement.
Wonderful. I personally tried to reach the right person, and I was unable to, maybe because of the bureaucracy. What we wanted to provide, FEMA inspectors, is a bit of a training on how to deal with the immigrant community, and we do that as part of the program at Michigan. And I'm not sure who to talk to about that, because that can also make the work with the community a little bit smoother. It's a different community, and just like any other immigrant community. Is there a possibility we can help you with that?
Well, I would just like to say that we are having cultural sensitivity classes, and in fact, I would like to bring in one of our subject matter experts right now, and I see that we're getting near the end of the program, and Mohsen has some announcements that he would like to make. And if he takes us up to the end of the program, Khalil, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. And you seem to know a lot about disaster assistance, and we certainly appreciate this opportunity, and we would look forward to coming back on soon.
And I want to thank you so much for being on the program, both of you, and also want to thank Erica for arranging this. And I want to give the person, you mentioned, the chance to say the last few words.
Yes, and here's Mohsen.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum salam.
My name is Hossein Mahmood, and actually I'm very closely coordinating with the Islamic community. We set up the table at the Islamic Center of Detroit last Friday, and we registered a lot of people over there. And recently, the most current one, we are working at the Islamic Center of America today at 1 o'clock, and trying to register as much Muslim community as we can.
Okay.
We are there at 1 o'clock, and we are staying there till 8 o'clock today, and also Saturday too.
Okay.
Sounds
good. Well, we thank you so much for providing the information, and we will continue this conversation on our website. And also, if any of the listeners have any questions, please give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help. Call FEMA and get registered today. It's very important, so we can keep the assistance coming. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back for the other half of the program. Thank you.
Dr. Opada Al-Zuhaili is a diabetes and endocrinology specialist with over 12 years of experience in medical research dealing with diabetes patients. Dr. Zuhaili lectures in many American and Arab universities about the latest research and studies related to diabetes. Al-Zuhaili Medical Centers are fully equipped to provide you with the best in medical treatment. Whether Arabic or English, our staff of medical professionals speak your language and can provide for your comfort and care. You're always welcome at Al-Zuhaili Medical Centers. Please visit our Southfield location at 27207 Losser Road, and for appointments call 248-809-5988. That's 248-809-5988.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Jumana K-Ruse. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Jumana K-Ruse. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Jumana K-Ruse.
It's sad, but it seems like we live in an age where most lawyers are focused on the bottom line, the money. And a lot of people have stopped wanting to truly advocate. I'll never forget this case. This woman chose me as a lawyer of last resort. She was hit by a semi-truck. I was able to recover about $480,000. Not every lawyer is an advocate, but every lawyer should be an advocate.
Let Jumana K-Ruz protect your rights. Call the law offices of Jumana K-Ruz at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS, extension 100, or visit yourrights.com.
Good morning and welcome back to Radio Baladi. We thank you for listening. You can join the conversation at 248-557-3300. In the first half, we were talking with FEMA representatives about the flood assistance in the area, and then we're going to continue with the second half talking to Dr. Muhannad Hamama. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good, good.
We thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Hamama is a Chief Health Officer, Chief Health as the Wayne County, and he's one of our most successful community members. We are so proud of your accomplishments, and we really thank you for your time being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking this half, but before we get into the health issues, during the flood situation, there was some concerns about, for health reasons, is bleach is enough to clean disinfect the bacteria, or should we hire, specialized people to do that? And if, we clean it right away, and I don't know if that's in your area, but I just wanted to ask you, if this is something that you can shed some light on.
Absolutely. It is actually in our domain of what services we were providing. In fact, when the flood happened, we partnered with our sister department, Homeland Security, as well as coordinated with FEMA, and we were looking, as you mentioned, about the health side of things, and specifically on cleaning efforts. And, of course, it is very concerning whenever there is flood for mold and how mold can affect the overall health of the family who's living there, and specifically young children. So our environmental health division did a couple of demos on how to clean after the flood and what to use. So back to your question, whether to do it yourself using bleach and regular disinfectants, or to hire a professional company, I think this is a case per case, and it relates to the extent of the damage. But if we're talking about regular, not an extensive flood where the goal is to prevent mold from happening, then absolutely regular household bleach that is diluted 1 to 10, cleaning of the area, mopping the floor is something that is recommended. Of course, in more cases where the water has been stagnant for a while, or you have carpet and padding, that has to be removed, then that area has to be cleaned. Sometimes you need to cut pieces of the drywall if mold started building. And again, this is where an evaluation has to be done to consider the extent of cleaning after such incidents.
When the incident happened, myself and a lot of people in the area we put out a lot of furniture and couches and chairs and so forth and so on. And these are furniture that were soaked with sewage water. However, a lot of people took them. What can we say to these people who really took these items?
Unfortunately, there was a lot of furniture, as you said, that are sitting on driveways, and because of such magnitude of waste, that waste management were not on track in being able to clear all those. Some people, as you said, yes, I know some people started taking those. Definitely that's not a good practice because, as you said, those couches, those pads are soaked with water that might be contaminated. It is a health risk, and we hope that whoever took those furnitures are not going to recycle those by reselling them. And if they're trying to use them, then we hope that they are going to go through cleaning and disinfecting
process. Yeah. What's the health risk there?
Well, a simple thing is to have mold that is forming, and of course mold can elicit a lot of reactions that vary from allergy to respiratory constrictions such as asthma attack, and especially you have children that are asthmatic, or it is in most of the houses that were flooded were in basements where ventilation is not as perfect. So to have a mold which is basically a fungus that is growing and producing spores, and those spores can circulate in the air, then it is something that can produce some side effects.
So when we're talking about mold, we're talking about black mold. This is the chief concern. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Wonderful. I thank you for that information. We just wanted people to know what we're dealing with, because I visited quite a bit of homes, and people were ripping walls like a month or so later, and you can, black mold is visible, but they were kind of oblivious to the danger, and that kind of creeps on you. It doesn't really happen right away. People don't get sick right away, but it takes time for people to get sick. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the other part we want to talk about is what's in the news today, which is the Ebola virus. What's the update, Doctor?
As we're all watching, of course, the focus is on Dallas, and specifically after the specific patient that traveled from Liberia checked into a hospital in late September and died in early October, I think October 8th. We have currently 2 health workers that tended to Mr. Duncan, and they both tested positive. They are being treated. One is at the CDC Center for Control at Emory University in Atlanta, and the second has flown this morning to Maryland at the National Institute of Health to be treated. Both are not showing the symptoms where vomiting and diarrhea and bleeding is happening, and we know that this is where the patient is most contagious. So we hope that this is the extent of what we are going to encounter in Dallas. However, there are precautions as well for everyone that treated Mr. Duncan, including the medical team, to limit their exposure with public, just to pass through the 21 days. As you might know, if you get exposed to the Ebola virus or come in contact with a patient and you don't show symptoms within 21 days, which is the incubation period, then chances are you're home free. So that's where we are in the mode of observation. We do not know, and there hasn't been any reports of any other cases in the United States beside those 2 in Texas, and of course the earlier ones, those are the health workers that were in West Africa helping the 2 doctors that were confirmed that they are disease-free by now.
Sounds good. Briefly, what is the Ebola virus? What does it do to the body, and what kind of risk it is? Is there like a risk of an epidemic or anything like that?
Well, absolutely. The risk is that it's a serious illness that we do not have a treatment for, and we do not have a vaccine against. So there are so many viruses that are out there that probably have the same severity or might cause outbreaks, but they are contained because, 1, we know how to protect against them, and 2, we know how to treat them. With the Ebola, first of all, Ebola is a zoonotic virus. That means originally the reservoir and the species that it infects are animals. And it is believed that the reservoir of the Ebola virus in Africa are the fruit bats.
Okay.
These are bats that eat fruit, and that's the only primary species that is affected. However, sometimes a mutation happens, or because of certain practices, a virus jumps species, and this is what happened. I believe the unofficial story is that some family in Africa found either dead bats, or they captured those bats and they cooked them and eat them, and this is how the outbreak of the disease. Of course, it is not a new disease. There has been outbreaks since 1976.
So why don't we have a vaccine for it? It's been around since 1976.
There is no vaccine for so many reasons. 1, because there are so many subtypes, and the virus changes in its composition, and 2, sometimes manufacturing a vaccine is not pretty easy. However, the encouraging signs is that there are some practices or have been proven that by transfusing blood of Ebola patients to non-patients, it is producing some protection. So that means we are close into discovering some antibodies against the virus, and that is definitely a positive step in producing a vaccine. The other reason there's also not a vaccine, because I think the last outbreak we saw was almost 10 or 15 years ago, and it was contained. It was never to the extent where there was now a global threat, and that wasn't a priority in looking at a vaccine that protects against that. And lastly, what is contributing, of course, now not only to Ebola but to every possibility of a disease outbreak is the openness of the world and globalization. There's no
mobility,
no bound. Exactly.
Yeah. So, sounds good. And how does the infection takes place? Is it like is it airborne, or is it like you have to touch certain liquid, or how does it?
It is absolutely not airborne. Okay. It is when a person comes in contact with either a contaminated surface or a contaminated object, or a sick person that is showing the symptoms, or animals that are infected by the virus. So these are the only modes of transmission of the virus. So one thing that I need to stress, and specifically for the public, is that we don't need to go into panic and a hysteria mode. It is not airborne, so you cannot breathe it in. Those that are at high risk are health professionals that are caring for a sick or for a patient, and his immediate family or friends that are around him constantly.
We have a caller. We have Najib on the line. Just want to get a quick question from Najib.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Khalil Hashim.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
And good morning to Dr.
Hammam.
Dr. Hammam. Thank you, Dr. Hammam. How are you, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Hammam, my question addressed in two parts. Compare Ebola disease to cholera. I want to know the difference and how dangerous and risky compare each one with other, Ebola versus cholera. And the second part of the question, Dr. Hammam, our culture as Middle Eastern background, we do have a lot of hugs and a lot of kisses between our families. And what do you advise on this case, doctor? And thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Najib. These are great questions. Let me answer the second one first. Yes, we are a very touchy-feely culture, and regardless whether we're talking about Ebola or common cold, some common practice, if someone is coughing and sneezing, chances are you keep a little bit of a distance and you try to protect yourself. So I would encourage all of us to use the same cautious measures whenever we're dealing with any disease. So if we know that, and again, let me emphasize that a patient is not contagious until that patient is showing the symptoms. So chances are when a patient goes into the full blast of the Ebola manifestation of symptoms, and these are severe vomiting and bleeding from the nose and diarrhea and all that, chances are anybody in the right state of mind would not want to hug or to even come close. So this is a common sense.
Yes, common sense, yeah.
About the first one, of course, there are so many differences between Ebola and cholera. One is a viral infection, which is Ebola. Cholera is a bacterial infection. However, they have similarities in some of the symptoms and the modes of transmission. Cholera, as we know, causes severe diarrhea, and it is transmitted by contamination, where someone comes in contamination with an object or food that is contaminated by the watery stool. That's the trademark of cholera, which is watery stool and the severe diarrhea. The same thing happens with Ebola, is that contamination with bodily fluids, so that is blood, vomiting, urine.
Yeah.
The difference as well is that cholera has a treatment, and it is contained, and it is not as severe. Basically, when someone has cholera, then the immediate reaction is to correct the fluid loss because of diarrhea and correct electrolytes that the patient is losing. There is no severity like Ebola. Ebola dangerousness comes from the fact that it's an hemorrhagic fever. So once the bleeding starts, then this is where there's not only loss of fluids, but there is loss of blood.
Loss of blood. What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about the D86 and other issues as well. Please stay tuned.
Senabriku for all your Metro Detroit real estate needs. 248-755-3494. Whether buying or selling, short sales, foreclosure, or investment for both business and residential, call Senabriku, owner and broker of St. Jude Realty, at 248-755-3494. If you're facing legal problems, it's time to get the right attorney working for you. Ziad Gossett is experienced in foreclosure defense, eviction, and real estate law, as well as immigration matters, workers' comp, bankruptcy, business law, and all criminal matters. With attorney Ziad Gossett in your corner, you won't have to fight alone. Call 248-680-7300. That's 248-680-7300. Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi. We want to thank you for listening, and we are talking with Dr. Hamama. We're talking about the different health issues. You can join the conversation at 248-557-3300. And before we continue, I just want to mention something that Dr. Hamama was named co-chair of Population Health Council at the Wayne County Health Authority. Congratulations. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please, Doctor?
Absolutely. Thank you. The Population Health Council is a coalition of many different organizations that are looking into health matters and how to improve health in southeast Michigan. It is an initiative that is led by the Detroit Wayne County Health Authority, and last year we were successful in providing a report that talks about the city of Detroit and some of the health priorities and health issues that are prominent in the city. Of course, another twist on the Population Health Council is not only we're looking at healthcare as access to healthcare or the needs of a community, but we're looking at everything that promotes health. So one thing that Wayne County Department of Public Health has been very involved in are the social determinants of health. So that means where you live as an environment, as a physical place, the type of work, the job you hold, the education level that you receive are all going to interact and affect how healthy you and your family and the future generation are going to be. So we're looking at it from an upstream approach, and this year we hope that we are going to produce a report that is for whole Wayne County. And I'm honored to be chosen to co-chair this. My co-chair colleague is Dr. John Powell from California, who is a pioneer in tackling social issues and social justice matters. So it's a combination between health and those community organizations and grassroots organizations of tackling health as a comprehensive scope, not only from a medical point of view, but also from a social as well.
Wonderful. Congratulations. And wish you best of luck. The other issue you want to talk about, which is the virus has been attacking children, and that is D68. And I think recently one child in Michigan has died, and I don't think a lot of people understand the severity of that and what are the symptoms.
Right. Enterovirus D68, again, last month was gaining some momentum, and I think the scare of the Ebola has overshadowed that a little bit. However, fortunately, it is definitely not as severe and as dangerous as Ebola. And although we had the unfortunate case of one child, the seriousness of the enterovirus D68 was more by the burden it was putting on our emergency room hospitals. So let me tell you a little bit of a background of the virus itself. This is an enterovirus. It comes from the same family as the polio virus. The reason it's labeled as an enterovirus because it usually is a stomach virus. Of course, as we all know, polio virus produces severe paralysis in children, and this specific enterovirus D68 is called non-polio, so it is not as severe as the polio virus.
However, it can be deadly, though, right?
Well, it can be, just like anything, if there are other underlying factors that can exacerbate its effects. So it starts as a respiratory illness, just like a regular respiratory illness with sneezing, coughing, a little bit of a combination of other symptoms. But it is more severe in children that already have respiratory disorders such as asthma and wheezing. And this is the case where if not treated immediately, it causes respiratory distress, and if there is an underlying severe asthma condition, then that can lead to hypoxemia, which is lack of oxygen, and that lack of oxygen can lead to death. So 73% of the cases that were diagnosed and confirmed, we saw tons of cases, if not hundreds of cases, that came to the emergency room. But again, not all of them were confirmed as having the enterovirus. Some of them were just, it's the flu season, just common flu. It coincided with going back to school as well, and this is where the time where children get sick and come down with any kind of respiratory illness.
Is there a vaccine for it?
There is no vaccine that is effective against it. The treatment basically is mechanical ventilation, palliative treatment, and just monitoring the case and making sure that oxygen supply and whatever symptoms are being treated.
So if a child has fever, runny nose, sneezing or coughing, I need to be careful. This may not be regular flu, it may be something more serious. And
that is correct. That is correct. And we have at the health department, we have circulated guidelines to all our health providers in Wayne County, advising them. Of course, all doctors are professionals and they know what to look for. But sometimes in such outbreaks, we get guidelines from the Center of Disease Control and from
CDC,
and from the Michigan Department of Community Health, MDCH, where we should be on the lookout for certain signs and to be more cautious to know what tests to order or whether there is a suspicion how to handle that. One thing that, Khalil, I would like to add is that one side or one observation in some of the patients that made this disease also more noticeable and more notorious is that there were some incidents where the respiratory symptoms were combined with some focal paralysis of the muscles of the legs. And this is where its relationship to the polio virus started to make sense. That was not in every case. It was in very few cases where some weakness in the muscles of the legs were observed.
Wonderful. And to really wrap up the segment, any recommendations to our community when it comes to the Ebola or the D68 or general health recommendations in general?
Absolutely. I will emphasize the need for common sense in treating anything that can be a source of infection for any of these viruses and anything that is circulating out there. We emphasize the need for also hygiene practices, hand washing, cover your mouth when you're sneezing. If there is someone that is severely ill, try not to come in contact. Isolation. If you have fever or you think you're coming down with something, it is a good reason to take the day off. Don't go to work. Don't infect those that are around you. So these are the things that we always tell our public yearly and year-round, regardless of what disease we're trying to protect. This is normal public health practices. And for, again, we don't want our residents to panic. The chances of Michigan having any case of Ebola is probably very, very, very little. We are coordinating with all our partners, with Homeland Security, with the CDC, with the MDCH, and with the airport. We are on the lookout for everything. We participated with Oakwood Wayne the day before yesterday in an Ebola drill. We brought in actors and we exercised a scenario, and they were both their infectious disease unit and the hospital administration as well as public health officials were very aware of what needs to be done. So we hope that this is going to pass, and we hope that whatever we are ready for and prepared for, we will never need to execute and go into an execution of our plans.
I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing this information. And as always, we wish you the best of luck. And thanks again.
Thank you very much, Khalil.
You're very welcome. And I want to thank you for another hour spending that with us. You are one of the best listeners in the world. Thank you so much. We wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And, hopefully we will meet next month for another segment of what's really important to the community. أستودعكم الله وأسأل الله تعالى أن يعطيكم الصحة والعافية. الرجاء إن الجمال الذي أودعه الله فينا لا يرتبط بلون البشرة أو شكل العينين، إنما هو كائن أودعه الله يتشكل بصفاتنا وأخلاقنا وكلامنا. إلى اللقاء في الشهر المقبل والسلام عليكم. Thank you.